order, please?
You got the new one?
And we need to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Mr. Gerard, seconded by Mr. Vanslo. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. With that, Denise, we'll turn it over to you.
How are you today, everyone?
Fine, how about you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'm fine. I am, just presenting my budget,
Right.
coming in, and there were a couple of adjustments that were made from the budget meeting till now. And, one of them is, I'm gonna find it here, account number 422, repair and maintenance equipment. I have asked for an increase in that by $1,000, that particular account code, to cover the transition of the VIMS, which is the Veterans Information Management System,
Right.
to be a dual user system instead of a single user system. Obviously, it's not effective. I now have a full-time clerk, and only one of us can be in the system at one time. So come the new year, we'll both be able to access it simultaneously.
Okay.
Which will be a huge benefit for the department.
Mhm.
And, in return for that, I don't know if it wasn't meant to be at first, but it came to light that my automotive gas and oil, which is 442, it looked like over a 2-year period that I could decrease that by $1,000, so it was kind of a wash.
Oh,
So it
true.
worked out well.
Okay, good.
Outside of that, I do not have anything else, to add for the budget. I mean, there really was, it pretty much just stayed what it was.
All right. Second to the motion. Gerard? Question.
Yes,
Rachel.
please. I just had a couple of questions. One regarding, and I couldn't really follow it in the budget, and maybe you can help me with this. Last year, there was a lot of attention on a part-time position that was funded at a full-time position in 2015. And it was my understanding that that position never actually went to a full-time position during this year, right?
It did, we were working with the employee also that had issues regarding, her health insurance in the marketplace.
Okay.
So, she had asked personally if we could wait, and I think it was July 1st that she became full-time.
Okay, so she is full-time now.
She
Yes.
is full-time now.
Right, okay.
But it was, us working with her, because I didn't want to go to a different employee. Obviously, she has
Right.
that much training that we've already invested in her. So I was just being patient with her on the transition because of her family's health insurance.
I know the last time you were here, we talked about it, and she hadn't gone to that point yet, so I didn't realize that now you've got
Yes.
some extra assistance,
Yes.
which is good. The other thing is, we were at a NITAC conference, and they were talking a little bit about, we were during our inter-county committee meeting, Veteran Services, and a gentleman from, I think his name was Sam Hall from Washington County,
Yes.
presented. And it led to a discussion about a mobile van. And he had, and I saw that there was some cuts as it related to automotive somewhere, or maybe I read it wrong, but and he had said that perhaps there was a possibility to work collaboratively with Washington County to start talking about bringing a van out for primary care visits, maybe once a month or twice a month, and is that something that is possible or needs to be accounted for in the budget?
I'm not sure if I'm clear on what you're asking, okay? So if you, are you talking about us support, meaning Warren County Veteran Services Department supporting bringing veterans to a primary care visit?
No, and
Okay.
actually, that's what I thought he was talking about initially
Right.
when he was talking about the mobile van. And what he said is Clinton County is doing a little bit more of this, and that he was interested in doing it with Warren and Washington counties, actually having a van with a doctor that would go out to some rural areas and where people can't travel and providing some medical care.
Mhm.
And then that could be a possibility here, and I didn't know if it would affect the budget or if that was something that's funded through grants that could be added later, or if it was even possible.
Actually, that would be 100% supported by the VA. So
Okay.
we would have to put in a request to the VA to go to our outreach, because we do have a CBOC on 84 Broad Street.
CBOC, meaning you're
CBOC,
talking about the video conference?
No,
Okay.
CBOC is clinically based outpatient clinic, so it's a primary care
Right, okay.
facility at 84 Broad Street.
Mhm.
So, we would be talking about veterans, I don't know because their thing is that if they're more than 50 miles
Right.
from a facility, facility, then we would support mobilization. Those, anybody in our county would not, I don't believe, would be more than 50 miles from the CBOC.
And that's the veterans, the VA's requirement.
Right, because they will provide care access within the community to any veteran, that is more than 50 miles. So, my example would be, I have fought for care access within the community for a veteran that has kidney disease and needs dialysis 3 days a week. It is not feasible for them to travel back and forth to the VA hospital 3 days a week. So we got them care at 112 Hospital. VA's paying for it, okay? So, to my understanding, I don't believe we would have to prove that we have veterans outside a 50-mile radius from that CBOC on Broad Street in order to support, for them to come up. Now, I could see things like Essex, you know what I mean, because there's no CBOC, of course, it's 112. Then you start splitting it. Is Plattsburgh closer, because they have a CBOC up there, or is 112 closer? Do we have to, you know what I mean? So, I don't think it would hit our county, but it would be probably very effective for other counties, you know, just about north of us.
Okay.
Yep, yep. Transportation's an issue, there's no doubt.
He did indicate that there were some problems in recruiting volunteers to drive, and that it's very difficult to have people drive that van down to Albany. And, you know, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we did recently just join the Adirondack Chamber, and I'm often seeing email blasts go out saying, you know, we're looking for volunteers in all these different areas, and I don't know, maybe if that's something we could utilize to recruit some volunteers?
Yep, currently we pay our drivers.
Okay.
We are only, and we are one of the counties that pays our drivers. They're part-time, no more than 24 hours a week, individually, and, we do a volunteer basis. So, the setup in Clinton County is that really, the Veterans Office up there has nothing to do with the transportation. Although they do help out with, the reservation of a veteran calling in saying, I need transportation on this particular day, okay? They help out with that. All of their vehicles are Disabled American Veterans Organization vehicles, and their drivers are all volunteer. So, it is harder to keep up the drivers, to make sure we have drivers on a daily basis, because for them to transport down, you're talking, it's almost a 2.5-hour drive after they've stopped at all their stops, and then also waiting at the hospital for every veteran to be done, you know, completed with their appointment, and then traveling back. So, we have not, we're one of the only counties that is still supplying 5 days a week, and we do have 3 part-time drivers. Now, we don't have an issue, obviously, with making sure we have a driver available for a particular day. They wanna come to work, they wanna get paid. Clinton County hires a separate person to just do transportation. So it's like one of those things, do we wanna go into, I don't know. I don't know how to,
And I didn't
you know,
realize it paid,
analysis
so
of it
that's good.
statistically, I'm not sure if it would be, a lucrative thing for us to go into that, since it is basically a full-time job to keep that transportation going. Chrissy might be able to talk more about that, because you deal with
I think
volunteers.
the way you're doing it is great, because volunteers, it's very difficult to recruit and retain volunteers now. We're having an awful time with Meals on Wheels. And you do need somebody, you know, we have a volunteer service coordinator who coordinates, you need somebody to coordinate them, and that person, you know, if you can find someone to do it part-time, ours is full-time with benefits, and it's just really tough to keep volunteers, really, really tough.
Right, so I don't know, I mean, I do know that happens. I do know that, like Washington County, I don't know if they pay their drivers or not. I do believe they do, because they own their own vehicles, but they only go 3 days one week, 2 days the next. But they also pick the veteran up at their home. So, I mean, everybody has a little bit different of a setup of how they manage their transportation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do any other committee members have any questions, or are we good to go ahead and vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
Do You just wanna move this right along, Matt, I can see.
Does everybody have,
somewhere
everybody has my info?
Okay. Christie, go right ahead and get started.
Get started, all right. I do have a few things on the action agenda before we
Right.
get into, my budget. The first one is to enter into a new contract with KLC Property Enhancement to provide plowing at the Bolton Meal site. The rationale for that is that, plowing the parking lot and keeping it sanded is part of our requirement of our lease, that's, in the lease. Last year, we didn't have anybody to do it, the church wasn't happy with the person that we had doing it, so we didn't have a contract last year, but we do need to get one in place, and, they seem amenable to this individual doing it.
All right.
So,
Motion by Mr. Gerard, a second by Mr. Vanslo. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
all right, the second two are both, lease renewals for, meal sites. The, first one is with the town of Luzerne, and the rationale is the lease is expiring on the 31st of this year. It's $13,000 per year, flat fee, and, so I don't know, do you vote separately on these, or?
Or did you wanna put them? All right, we'll put those together.
I'll second.
In a second. All right.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, what was the lease before this? The
For,
amount?
for Luzerne,
Yeah.
it was the same, it was 13,000 this year as well.
Okay.
And then the lease with Cedars is, the lease with Cedars is structured a little differently. We reimburse them for expenses, so it's not a flat fee. So if you'll notice, there's 3 different amounts in there, cause it increases a little bit each year. We pay them for, a variety of different things. But that's our largest site, and,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right.
the last one is for authorization for me to attend, the annual Leadership Institute. It's, in Watkins Glen this year. I go every year. It's all the directors from across the state, all the state Office for the Aging directors.
All right, motion by Mr. Gerard, second by Ms. Seaver. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now I guess it's on to the
All right, on to the fun stuff.
Right.
So my budget did change a little bit from my meeting, with the budget team, and that was because, my salary schedule, had some open positions that were budgeted as full-time, and they should have been part-time. And, there was also $38,000 in, benefits in that original budget, so those have come off.
Okay.
My increase is now 0.91%. Just some facts about the budget, 60% of the cost of the county is the nutrition program. 49% of the total budget, so the total request, is the nutrition program. So obviously that's a lot of the, that's a lot of where we spend our money, and, along with that, 47% of my total request is salaries and fringe. So, and that's salaries for meal site staff. So really, the nutrition program is where the bulk, of my expenses are, and, we have done a lot to try and reduce costs at the meal site, but there's, obviously certain things, salaries, you can't and we have reduced, actually, we've eliminated a position up in, Long Lake, and we're talking about reducing hours at a position. We have an open position at one of the other sites, so we're talking with civil service about how we can do that, and about possibly combining, positions at sites, 'cause right now we have cooks and, managers at each site. And so we're talking about, numbers, and if we can possibly have a swing position, if the numbers are low enough, so that what happens is if they're only preparing, say, 20 meals per day, we have one person at the site, but then if for big meals, because there's certain meals that are more popular than others, if on those days we have 40 meals, then we allow them to have a swing sub come in for that. So those are things that are not reflected in the budget right now, because I'm still working with civil service on how to, create a new position, because it would entail taking, the 2 positions and making them into one, and there's not currently a civil service job description for that. beyond that, we've gotten some, a new grant, the BIP grant. You can see right now that it's showing, over revenue in that program. But that's just because we have to get salaries in there, and they're already in the budget. They're just not in the way that the payroll distribution is, they're not distributed correctly in there. So we got a little more money from the state for that. We got a little bit more money in the 6780 and 6778, the CSE. We got a little bit more money in there, so that helped offset some of our expenses. I transferred some expenses from the federal side of things where the reimbursement rate's a little lower, so some of our supplies and things like that went in there. Any questions? Anything?
Rachel?
I have just two questions.
Sure.
One, when I feel a little embarrassed to say I didn't know we had a long-term care ombudsman, but I see in your department request it's at a 0. So I'm just wondering, you know, over the years it's gotten less and less and less, but are we now not gonna have an ombudsman at all?
We're not. So that's why, and that's another program where you see there's a request in there, and that's all salaries, and there's no accompanying revenue, and that's because that program will be going away actually September 30th. It's going out of our office, but it's gonna be regionally administered by the state. So it's not really going away, people will still have an ombudsman to call.
Okay.
It just won't be out of our office anymore.
And so we don't pick up we weren't picking up costs anyway, our revenue was coming into that.
Revenue was
offset it.
coming in, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good, I was concerned we might have an ombudsman at all.
No, yeah, it's gonna be held regionally.
And then my other question is as it relates to the SNAP appropriation, and
Mhm.
I'm familiar with SNAP under social services, but I guess I'm not as familiar with it under the Office for Aging budget, and I had learned last week that the SNAP appropriation is actually expanding, going into 2016, and that can have a pretty big effect on our budget. So I'm just wondering how that, maybe you could just give me a real 101 version on SNAP for elderly, and are you going to be affected by that in your budget?
Well, the short answer is no, we're not gonna be affected by it at all. And actually, I should change this because it's no longer called SNAP anymore, that's what it used to be called, Senior Nutrition Appropriation Program.
Okay.
But they've changed the name to the WIN program, Wellness in Nutrition.
Okay.
So I really shouldn't even be using SNAP for
Well, I saw that
sorry
and I'm
about that.
thinking,
I forget that it's changed and that, you know, it's now the food stamp program, but yeah, it's a totally different program, it's just a supplemental nutrition funding stream. The 6771 and 6773 are federally funded, and the SNAP WIN is a state funded.
Right.
So it just gives us more.
So there's no
nutrition.
contribution on behalf of county?
For WIN?
Yeah.
There is. There is because, we're overmatched in the program. There's 16,269. But we, you know, we can reimburse up to the 257,846. It's not a percentage, so they'll give us dollar for dollar up to 257.
But what you're saying, we aren't exceeding 257?
We are. Well, we're exceeding, we're not exceeding 257, but we're only getting 208,577 in state revenue, and then the contributions of 33, so it leaves us with 16,269.
All right. I'm just gonna change all those acronyms to my.
Clear as mud, right?
Thank you.
All right, anyone else with any questions? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the budget. Mr. Vanslo, second. Mr. Gerard, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Sign for that conference. Oh. We need a motion to adjourn, I'm sorry.
Have a good one.
Mr. Sokol, second.
I was wondering if you were gonna do that.
Mr. Frost, I know you were anxious. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. I'm sorry. Concerned about signing.